So let's suppose there is a base class and the name of the base class is, let's suppose, base. So there is a base class. Let me define this base class as this. So we know that this base class will have three sections. And these three sections are public, private, and protected. So in this tutorial, we will discover the use of protected type access specifier. So we have discussed public and private in the previous tutorials, but we have not discussed the protected one. And in this tutorial, we will discuss about that and its significance in inheritance. So let's suppose there is a base class. So now we want to make another class, a derived class, and we will name it as subclass. So let's create a class. So if you want to create a subclass, let's name it as subclass. So if you want to inherit the properties from the base class, you will have to use a colon, and then you will have to use a visibility mode, or you can say the access specifier, public, and you will have to now write the name of the base class. And now this will be the body of our whole class. So let's now discuss this whole line here. So in this line, this is the name of the subclass, and this is a colon, and you can say that this is a derived class, and this is the name of the base class, and this one is known as visibility mode. This one is known as visibility mode. So let's see what does this mean. What is the meaning of visibility mode? So we know that there is a base class and it has three sections. Similarly, there will be a derived class, or I should say subclass, and this subclass is inheriting the properties, or you can say it is deriving some of the properties from the base class. But we know that this subclass will also have three sections. So if the subclass also has three sections, public, private, and protected. Let me write it here: public, private, and protected. So we know that base class and subclass, both of these classes will have three sections. So how can we derive the properties of this base class in particular sections only? So we will use visibility modes to resolve this problem. So let me define visibility mode here so that it becomes a little more clear to you what exactly is the meaning of visibility mode. So visibility mode controls the visibility. It controls the visibility and availability of inherited base class members, in the derived class. So visibility mode, it controls the visibility and availability of inherited base class members in the derived class. So this means that the members that are in the public section and the members in the private section and the protected section of the base class, we can actually control how these members will be visible in the base class. We can control that. Like we can control that derivation, or you can say if you are creating a subclass, the public members and the private members and the protected members will go in the private section of the subclass. So this means visibility or availability. So we can actually control how the members of the base class are visible in the subclass. So we will use visibility modes to specify that. So I'm now going to create a table to show you how different visibility modes will have an impact in inheritance, on visibility, or you can say availability of inherited base class members. So let me draw a table here. These are some of the visibility modes. And the first visibility mode is public, then protected, and then private. So you can use any of these three as a visibility mode, and let's see how this will control the visibility in the subclass. So if the visibility mode is public, which is in our case, so the inherited public members in the derived class will be public. So if you have specified that you are deriving from the base class using public visibility mode, so the public members of the base class will be visible inside the public section of the subclass. Similarly, in the inherited protected section, so if you are inheriting the protected section publicly and you are using the mode public here, so the protected members will go in the protected section of the subclass. So this is protected. So let's do a quick revision here. So if you have used a public as a visibility mode, so if you have used public here, the public members of the base class will be visible in the public section of the subclass, and the protected section of the base class will be visible in the protected section of the subclass. So what about private members? So there is one important thing to note in inheritance, and it is that private members cannot be inherited. So that means that if you have assigned members and functions as in the private section, you cannot inherit them. So it is not possible to inherit private members, and this is the main difference between the private and protected. Private members cannot be inherited, but protected members can be inherited. And we know that private members are not accessible outside the class, and similarly protected members are also not accessible outside the class. So that's why protected and private members are different in case of inheritance. So these are non-inheritable, but these are inheritable, else they have the same behavior. So that's why we discussed protected access specifier in this tutorial. So let's suppose the next visibility mode is protected. So what will happen if I use protected in this case? So if I have used protected as a visibility mode, so the public members of the base class will go to the protected section of the subclass. So I will write that public members will go to the protected section, and we know that private section is not inheritable, and the inherited protected members of the base class will also go to the protected section. So I will write protected in both the cases. So you can see here how we can just use visibility mode to control how the members of the base class will be visible in the subclass. So what will happen if I will use the visibility mode private? If I use visibility mode private, then the public members of the base class will be visible in the private section of the subclass. And we know that private members cannot be inherited, and then the protected members of the base class will go to the private section of the subclass. So in both the cases, the public members of the inherited class will go to the private section of the subclass, and similarly it applies to the protected members also. Sorry, it should be private section, so I will write private here. So in this way you can use visibility mode to control how the members of the base class will be visible in the subclass. If we have used the public visibility mode, then the public members of the base class will be visible in the public section of the subclass, and the protected members will be visible in the protected section of the subclass. And if you have used private as the visibility mode, it will be visible, the public member will be visible inside the private section, and similarly the protected members will also be visible in the private section. So this is how we can derive a subclass from a base class.